This morning, the court battles over health care for transgender teens. A state judge temporarily blocks the state from investigating parents for alleged child abuse, and a doctor takes her employer to court. But the city of Austin is taking a different approach to the issue. Mayor Steve Adler is with us this morning. Plus, Texas lawmakers could reach a bipartisan agreement on regulating the state's natural gas industry. State Senator Nathan Johnson takes our questions. Because of construction permitting problems, developers are threatening to stop building in Dallas. It could cost the city millions in property taxes. Can Councilwoman Paula Blackman help fix the process? And the Texas National Guard troops on the border say they're acting as glorified security for big Texas ranches.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to viewers all across the state. I'm Teresa Woodard in for Jason Whiteley this morning. Let's start things off with some top political headlines across Texas. Citigroup will pay for employees to travel out of state to get an abortion. This comes after several states, including Texas, implemented or proposed a near total ban on the procedure. Texas Republicans were swift to react. Matt Rinaldi, chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, encouraged Republicans not to do business with Citigroup, saying Citigroup's decision to finance the murder of unborn children with a heartbeat is appalling. The Texas Tribune reported this week that about 30 Texas National Guard members were ordered to stand watch outside some of the wealthiest private ranches in South Texas as part of Governor Greg Abbott's border security mission. These ranches also had private security. Those troops claimed their time was wasted when they could have been more useful at other posts closer to the border. A federal court struck down 3 different challenges to new voting laws in Texas. The challenges involved the state's ban on straight ticket voting, mail-in voting regulations during the pandemic, and verification rules for mail-in ballots. The appeals court denied those challenges on procedural grounds, ruling that they targeted the wrong state agency, the Secretary of State. Families of transgender children in Texas are in the middle of a political firestorm. The governor and Attorney General Ken Paxton ordered agencies to report and investigate parents of transgender kids for potential child abuse if they sought gender-affirming care. A Dallas doctor sued UT Southwestern Medical Center because the center closed its transgender youth clinic, the only one in the Southwest. But in Austin, leaders say they want to make transgender kids feel safe, so they declared the city a sanctuary. We spoke to Mayor Steve Adler about it from his office at City Hall. He is Austin's 52nd mayor.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate you being with us.
Teresa, it's good to be with you.
So you have said that the city of Austin should be considered a sanctuary city for transgender children and their families. What does that mean beyond symbolism?
What we mean by that is that we're going to do everything we can to support them, to help them feel safe. We issued a proclamation in conjunction with standing up with our county attorney and our district attorney, who made very clear that they would not do any prosecutions that would be equating transgender care with child abuse.
Have you heard from the governor's office or the attorney general's office regarding this? And are you at all concerned that they may make a decision to withhold state resources or state funding because you've made this move?
I have not heard from the governor's office, but I don't think we've done anything that would suggest that there'd be any grounds to drop any funding. I mean, we're not talking about not enforcing any state laws as a city. The city doesn't do prosecutions. The county attorney's office and the district attorney's office do. But all we have done as a city is just to make really clear that in this community, in Austin, we want everybody to feel safe.
You know, I'm curious, how would you describe the relationship right now between local governments, so cities and counties, and state government?
I think recently and far too often, we've been caught on these culture battles. We're trying to attract businesses to our community. My convention center has asked me to reach out to some conventions that we're planning on coming to town that are now either indicating they're going to withdraw or thinking about it. and asking me to get engaged to help keep them here, and that's not good for business. We have a diversified portfolio of cities in the state, and that helps our state be strong at different cycles, different kinds of business climates. Just like a diversified retirement account works for someone who's keeping that for themselves, and we should be supporting that as a state. Sometimes I feel like some of the state leadership wants to make all our cities the same, and that's not good. The businesses that locate in Austin, if they don't locate here, they don't go to Houston or Dallas next. They go to Denver or Portland or Nashville or Raleigh, North Carolina.
Let's talk about South by Southwest now. I feel like it was maybe one of the first big casualties of 2020 when we started hearing the word coronavirus. It's returned. We've seen huge crowds. What does it mean for the city of Austin to be back with these large in-person events, economically, but also emotionally?
It is incredible to have South by Southwest back and up and running this year. And you were right. South by Southwest in 2020 was the first big event in the country that was pulled down with the virus very early in the process, before people in much of the country really understood what was happening. It was the hardest decision that I've made as mayor. South by Southwest event is the functional equivalent of a Super Bowl in terms of its economic activity, and one that we get to have every year. But it's also so much more important than that. If you walk down our streets since last weekend and over the course of this weekend into the next one, you can feel the spirit of Austin, the innovation, the entrepreneurial spirit, the creativity, the artists, the thinkers, the forward-looking nature of this event.
Excellent. Well, congratulations to you. I know it's a big deal for the city, and really a big deal for the state as well.
Thank you very much, Teresa.
The director of the Texas Department of Public Safety says that the Texas Rangers investigation at the Refuge, that's a Bastrop shelter for foster kids, has found no evidence of sexual abuse or assault. But he did say that nude photos of young girls were found there. An employee of the Refuge is accused of taking those photos. Details of these accusations came out during a federal court hearing. The Texas Tribune reported on this story when these accusations did come out. For more on the story, let's go to Ross Ramsey with the Tribune. Ross, this investigation was lightning fast, and a lot of people are wondering how the Rangers can find nude pictures but still say there isn't any abuse.
Well, they didn't find any evidence of any abuse. They didn't say there wasn't abuse. They said that the allegations that they were investigating had not proved out. The initial story that came out of this was that there was abuse and some sex trafficking down there. That turns out, based on the evidence now, not to be the case, but they found some stuff that the DPS found, as they put it, extremely troubling, and they're still looking into this.
I know that the House and the Senate are both looking into it as well. Now, the Texas National Guard troops on the border have said they feel like they're acting as redundant and glorified security for some big Texas ranchers. I know that the Tribune did a lot of reporting on this as well. Governor Abbott shook up the Texas Military Department this week. What is going on with border security right now?
Well, the state is spending a lot of money down there. It's been a big priority of the governors and some other top state officials. They're obviously, politically involved in it. They're involved in it as government officials. But when you send troops there, they can't really do much other than call the police. And they feel like they're being deployed for a long time on a mission that doesn't make any sense for people in their position. And that, as you said, and as they told us, they feel like glorified backup security guards. One of them said they were no more than mall cops out in the open.
Wow. All right, Ross, stick around. We'll see you again in just a few minutes. For now, coming up next, could there be bipartisan agreement on something in Texas? Maybe when it comes to the effort to regulate the gas industry. State Senator Nathan Johnson is up next. And will Dallas have a serious economic issue if its permitting process is not fixed? We ask Councilwoman Paula Blackman that question. She's next. You're watching Inside Texas Politics. Texas could be moving towards more transparency in the natural gas industry. During a Senate Business and Commerce Committee meeting last week, a bipartisan group of lawmakers showed interest in creating an independent market monitor. State Senator Nathan Johnson was part of that group. Senator Johnson is a Democrat. His district stretches across the northern part of Dallas County. Senator, thank you for your time this morning. Good morning to you.
Thanks for having me on the show.
So let's start with a very broad question. When we hear independent monitor of the natural gas industry in Texas, what could that possibly look like?
We have a very good idea of what it could look like because we have an independent market monitor already in the electricity space. There's nervousness about having one in the gas industry, but it's important to note that when we first had the concept of an independent market monitor for the electricity industry, all the participants were opposed to it. They were afraid of it. And they all, at this point, realized it was a good idea. They rely on it to make sure that the market functions. So what does it look like? An independent market monitor has the authority and the mission of making sure people aren't misbehaving, making sure they're not breaking the rules of the market, making sure they're not abusing market power. And finally, they also just look at efficiency. Is this market working the way we intended it to? And if it's not, the independent market monitor has some insight that other people don't have as to how we can shape this market so that it functions better.
Since the winter storm of 2021, we've had a regular legislative session, multiple special sessions.
So don't remind me.
Why did this not happen then?
Have a little sympathy to the legislature. We meet 5 months every 2 years. We have 7,000 bills, 1,000 of them pass. We get hit with a storm in the second month in the middle of COVID. And you've now got 181 legislators and all the people who work with them, none of whom have spent their lifetimes studying gas markets or electricity markets, charged with fixing the grid. It's really a tremendous undertaking. The amount of work that we did manage to get done, and I'm proud to say that it was largely on a nonpartisan basis regarding the electrical industry, was really quite extraordinary. We did not have time to get to, or really, I think even the awareness for most of us of the need for an independent market monitor in the gas market. This is kind of a new day. You know, gas production in Texas has almost doubled in 20 years. And so it's not the same system that we had. And I think it's just now that legislators are catching their breath to be able to look at it instead of, frankly, the partisan stuff that had us, hostage down in Austin for 3 or 4 months after the regular session.
You just talked about partisan things. At a hearing earlier in March, it sounded like there could be bipartisan support, which is something we don't often say, for an independent monitor. However, the gas lobby is strong. So let's talk in reality here. Could this really happen?
I really think it could. And you have already observed that there is already bipartisan interest in this. The gas industry is not a monolith. There are producers, shippers, marketers, purchasers, transporters, compressors. It consists of a bunch of different people with different interests. If one segment of that has the upper hand, all the other segments suffer. And so an independent, and that can change from time to time, an independent market monitor ensures that all the participants can meaningfully participate in that market in a way that serves their interests and those of the rest of us.
Have you or your staff started writing up any legislation that would create the monitor or that would maybe firm up what you think the Railroad Commission can do?
I certainly am looking at it. And I'll be speaking with the Railroad Commission. I mean, we're not against anybody. We want to work with everybody to make sure that the system operates well. But yes, I'm actively looking at that as well, and other legislators are as well.
All right, Senator Nathan Johnson of Dallas, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
The slow process to get a building permit in Dallas has developers threatening to take their business to other cities. While it should take 1 to 3 days, some builders say it's been taking 2 to 3 months or longer, and the delay is costing the city millions. Councilmember Paula Blackman is leading the city's new efforts to fix this problem. She chairs the mayor's working group on permitting. Blackman represents Northeast Dallas. Dallas City Councilmember Paula Blackman with us this morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
What happened to put Dallas in this situation where builders are saying, we can't stand this anymore, we don't want to do business with you?
We've had those struggles with permitting for a while. It's a big city. Our zoning laws are complex. We've had personnel issues that, people have left the city that we haven't filled. And so when the pandemic hit, it really put the spotlight on the issue.
The Real Estate Council says that $9 million in city revenue is lost for every 3 months in delay. So is there a serious economic risk if you don't fix this and soon?
There is a serious economic issue that's at hand. The numbers that you've rattled, they have been publicized, and it's a problematic, especially from a city who makes money on property taxes. That's how we fund services. And so we have to do it right. We have to make this work. And we, as a city council, are investing everything we have and can and do to make sure that we get it right.
Is at the heart of it all bureaucracy the problem?
I don't think it's at the heart of the problem. I think it was it was a perfect storm. You had, a little bit of bureaucracy. And then when you had a pandemic coupled with a change in the platform and in the IT situation, coupled with then personnel leaving, it created a storm that what we have is what we have right now.
How quickly can you solve this problem?
So the short term is basically getting those days that you're waiting for a permit down. And we're looking at like the 42 days now, which is still not acceptable. They want to even be lower than that, but we are working towards that. And we're doing that through our hiring of personnel and outsourcing it to 3 vendors. We're looking to add another vendor. The midterm is making sure that staff is stabilized where they are. So we had a hybrid of a work situation. So now we're remodeling and redoing some of the offices, but we're bringing them all back on campus. So we are looking at everything and anything to cut those days down. 42 is still a long time. It really should be, 1 to 2, 3 days for a simple renovation. And so we are working towards getting those numbers down.
All right, Councilmember Paula Blackman, also the chair of the Mayor's Working Group on Permitting. A big task ahead of you, but good luck in working through all of it. Thank you for your time
Thanks
this morning.
for having me on this morning.
Coming up, about 23,000 mail-in ballots were rejected in the March 1st primary. Is this a problem that needs to be fixed? And Texas threatens companies. Is the state still pro-business? Our roundtable is next. It is time now for Reporters Roundtable, where we put the headlines in perspective each week. With us again is Ross Ramsey from the Texas Tribune. We also have Bud Kennedy joining us each week from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Good morning to you, Bud.
Hi, Teresa.
And Bernadine Steptoe, the political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bernadine, good morning.
Good morning to you.
All right, let's first talk about the fact that 23,000 mail-in ballots were rejected. That's about 13% during the March primary. Is there a problem that needs to be fixed, Ross, or is this exactly what Senate Bill 1 was meant to do when it became law?
Well, I don't think it was meant to do this. This was the effect of it, though. The normal number here is 1 or 2%. It was 13%, according to the Associated Press, which looked into this. And, they would rather not throw these out, but they made the process more complicated. And that many voters misunderstood it enough to inappropriately fill out their ballots and their ballot applications.
So, Bud, is this a problem that every county needs to address, or does it need to be addressed at the statewide level?
If you looked at that ballot, the problem was having to put your ID number under the flap on the envelope. Well, nowhere did it say in big letters, put your ID number under the flap on the envelope. So a lot of people didn't put their ID number on and then didn't get it corrected in time for the vote to count. The ballots have terrible directions. It's a structural problem. It's not a problem with the idea behind it.
And this is a large number, so this feels like it could really impact races if we don't do something about it between now and November. So, Bernadine, what do you think? Is this what people have called voter suppression?
Well, definitely if you believe that. But anytime you have a vote that is now counted, there's a problem. And to have that many, it could actually affect close races. So the question is who should fix it and who is willing to fix it. But that's a lot of people who did not get their vote counted.
You are right. Okay, so we have forever heard Texas being called a pro-business state. However, the state is now threatening companies like Chase and Wells Fargo to not divest from gas and coal. Now, the state Republican Party is also telling Republicans not to do business with Citibank because it is helping employees go to another state to obtain an abortion. And then in the newspapers, 65 corporations signed an ad calling for Texas to stop opposing LGBTQ rights. Ross, your take. Is Texas still pro-business with all of this going on?
I think they are pro-business. I think businesses are more involved in cultural issues and social issues than they probably used to be. And that's at the demand of their employees and their customers and their investors. And I think, the state has caught a little bit on its heels here. They didn't expect as much dissent from those sectors as they're getting and have been getting for the last few years, but it's there and it's something they've got to deal with.
And we saw when this was going on, when American Airlines was speaking about some things, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was very vocal in saying, read the bill, don't criticize us until you read the bill. I think he might have used an expletive that I'm not using there. So Bud, what's your take on this? Is Texas still considered pro-business?
Do you remember with the bathroom bill, it really didn't slow down until Jerry Jones, the Cowboys, and the sports leagues spoke out against it. The legislatures learned they're pro-business, but they're pro-politics first. They pushed immigrants around and business didn't argue back. They put the bathroom bill in and business really didn't argue back until the pro-sports leagues fought it. The same will be true with gay rights, transgender. As long as business doesn't really fight back or argue back, then the legislature will keep playing politics.
Quickly, Bernadine, what are your thoughts? Pro-business or no?
I think it's still pro-business. It's just you have elected officials who are more in tune to these cultural issues, but they still cater somewhat to the business communities. And as said earlier, until the businesses actually push back and stop coming to the state, then you're going to see, you'll see the politics play out.
All right. Bernadine, Bud, Ross, thank you so much. And thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great Sunday.